me and Fred wrote a song parody, right? And it was great. We found out right away we could write together, like Lennon and McCartney, because I'm so goofy and he's so sharp, and it was just...
He's a smart guy.
So it was just great fun, our song parodies. I thought were terrific. And I think the first one we wrote, and Howard goes, hey, Robin, here's a song parody I came up with. And it kind of caught me. And they played it, and I'm like, that's a little weird, you know? And after, I don't know if right away or another one, whatever, I said, what is this that you came up with? Me and Fred wrote that. However I said it, I was gentle. And then it was, hey, Robin, here's a song parody that me and the boys cooked up, you know? And it was like, after a certain amount, like, no, me and Fred. And eventually became, hey, the boys came up with a song parody. You know, Fred would have gone to his death without saying a word. And obviously and because he's the boss and I'm writing for him. And maybe I was out of line, but this is exactly what you're talking about. Like, yeah, he never said, hey, Jackie, that was a great line. But that wasn't our job. Yeah. You know, like Carson would never deliver a great line. Say, oh, thank you.
That's a tough spot. Let me, because, you know, obviously I ran a pretty successful radio show myself, Opie and Anthony.
I heard of that.
I had a different philosophy than that, because in my world, we had the song parodies, and we had instant feedback coming in, which we might as well have called it Jackie the Joke Man feedback, like, because it was the same sort of concept. People were firing lines all the time during the show. Every chance we could, we would give those guys credit. And if someone had a song parody that had nothing to do with it, I wasn't going to say it was something I did, because in the end, I felt like when I went home to my family and my friends and what have you, know what they said to me every time? Wow, you had a great show today. It didn't matter that the funny song parody or the funny line, it didn't matter. It didn't come from me that day, because in the end, I was going to get the credit because my name was on the billboard with Anthony. And I always noticed over the years, because we all bumped heads, that Howard had to be the funniest guy in the room, and he needed to get most, if not all, of the credit on a daily basis. And I never understood that, because in the end,
it's the Ed Sullivan show, and all these people are on his show.
Because I guarantee when he went home to his family and friends and all that, they all said, you had a great show today.
Oh, I got a story for you.
Let's go.
Elton John came on the show, but I wasn't there. It was a syndicated show that I was not part of, which is a whole nother one of those Jackie wasn't included things, which forget about. Because I wasn't signed with Buckwald. And they did a show on Saturdays. A syndicated show lasted a month or two. And there were a couple of guests they had that I never met because I wasn't there. And Fred wrote an incredible song and handed it to Elton John. And Elton John sang it. Made it up as he went along. He sang Fred's words as he made up the melody. And it's one of the great things on the Stern Show. And Fred used to always start the show with a whole montage. He'd do, and they would always have a theme. The guy's beyond brilliant. I will go to my death singing his praises. He was beyond funny, brilliant, smart. And it would be some kind, and the montage would always end with either a song parody or one of our bits or whatever. And one day it ended with Elton John singing, "There was a man with a very small penis," whatever it was. It's a funny song. And we just go on the air.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, I said, "Damn, Howard, you know what? I think that song's maybe the funniest thing Fred ever wrote." And he said, yeah.
They reached under to dump it out.
And he reached down. I had only recently found out that that's where the dump switch was, and I thought, no. And on break, I called up, and I said, "Nancy, were you awake this morning? Did you hear the opening of the show?" She says, "Yeah, I was listening." Did you hear the Elton John song? And she goes, "Yeah, that's so great. Isn't that great?" I said, "Did you hear me say, Howard, that's the funniest thing Fred ever wrote?" She said, "What are you talking about?" It went right into the show. Because if that came under Fred's name, that not just went under Fred's name, that came out from under his name.
Wow. And
I'm like, this is 1986. I'm like, I'm sorry, that's fucking petty. And people can yell at me for telling, that's the kind of tale that, I don't tell backbiting tales, but that,
right.
That sucks.
That says a lot, I think.
Yeah, just kind of sucks.
Because look, it's no secret I don't really like Howard at all, but I acknowledge he's a very
Credit where credit's due.
yeah, he's a very talented, obviously, and paved the way for a lot of guys and stuff. But
I'll tell you one thing.
There was plenty of credit to go
Oh,
around,
please.
man.
One thing, and I don't know if we ever discussed this. We probably did, but people would always say to me, "Oh, I could always tell when you wrote a joke because of your laugh," and I'd say, "That's true, but it's not totally true." He said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "I laughed if he said something funny, and I would laugh in relation to how funny it was how hard I'd laugh." Robin, you could say a girl got hit by a truck, and then somebody could deliver a brilliant line. It's the fucking same thing every time. Me, I would laugh depending on how funny something was.
Of course.
And if he said something really funny, I would go ballistic. And there were many times I came home when Nancy said, "You know, the funniest thing you wrote today was blah, blah, blah." And I go, "No, I didn't. Fred wrote that." She said, but you screamed laughing at it. I said, "Because it was so
Hilarious,
funny." Or else
right.
somebody say, "Oh, you know, the funniest thing you wrote today was such a..." No, I didn't write that. Howard said that on his own.
Yeah.
But you laughed so hard. I said, "I'm not there to promote myself. I'm laughing at what's funny on the show. And if it's funny, I laugh. And it's real funny, I laugh hard." And that was very important for me to... Now, of course, everything I wrote I thought was very funny. So I laughed very hard at myself all the time,
Right.
but not exclusively. You know?
Now, after all these years, who do you keep in touch with from over there?
Stuttering John I talk to, I try to.
Oh, I know. You both were on the
No,
podcast.
He's a good character. He's all over the place. People always say to me, "When does he stutter?" And I say, "Whenever I want him to." Because, you know, there's a famous thing when he was going to...
But you don't really keep in touch with Howard or Fred,
No, you know, the other
Robin?
day I actually wrote him an email and said, "Hey, congratulations on your book. I'm sure it'll do great."
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that for no reason.
Did he write you back?
Not yet, but it's only been a year and a half. And I sent something to Fred the other day, like maybe a couple months ago, because it was just so funny, and I had to share it with him. Maybe it was a book or a line or something like that. But me and Fred had lunch. You know, I could say 2 years, but it could be 5 years. I don't know, a long time ago. But we had a great lunch, and then Robin took me to lunch 2 or 3 years ago. But and we had fun and a lot of laughs, but she actually was trying to get me to join this cult that she's in. And I said, "No, I really don't want to walk on fire on my fucking knees, you idiot," you know. But, and Gary, once in a while, I run into Sal here and there.
Yeah.
You know, and I like him, you know, and Gary and me, like if there's something really fun that I think would be good for him, good for the show, but good for the person I met, you know, so, but there's no real communication.
It was so weird because our two camps were always at it, but I got along with all the other.
But of course.
I got along with all of them. Howard never wanted anything to do with me. I tried over the years to kind of like squash whatever the beef was in his head, because he apologized to Brother Weeze, my mentor.
Yeah, I heard about that. I finally met Brother Weeze. I went up to work Rochester, and we had a fabulous
Isn't he
time.
awesome?
Yeah, he's a great guy.
And Weeze, because Weeze knows I got in a lot of trouble with Howard because I was sticking up for Weeze when Howard went after his daughter back in the day, his mentally challenged daughter.
Yeah, the
so
stuff
anyway,
that now he's sorry for. Come
yeah,
on, you know.
Yeah, exactly, whatever. And when Howard called Weeze to apologize, which I think that's awesome on Howard's part, of
I
course.
think so.
And then Weeze, always having me in the back of his head, goes, "What about my boy Opie?" You know. And Howard, I swear to God, told Weeze, I could get him on this podcast. Howard goes, "I'm not ready for Opie yet." I'm like, get out of here.
Please. One of the most fun things that I ever heard,
Yeah.
which is that whole thing you're talking about, helping, and the guy's funny, but not blah, blah, blah. Out of the mouths of babes, come the truth,
Sure.
So they do this. They get hired to do this syndicated radio program once a week. And he says, "Well, we can't include you because we don't have much of a budget yet." But the truth is, the advertiser wanted a live crowd.
Oh, this is the TV show?
No, this is a syndicated radio show.
Okay.
But they wanted to have people watch.
Okay.
A live audience, even though it was a radio show, syndicated radio show. I think it was for Toyota. So, and this is very early on. So there's no way. We started going on the road, and I'd be passing them notes, in L.A. or wherever we were, because he didn't want to sacrifice not being funny. What the hell if a couple listeners seen, right? Because as we got bigger. But this is very early on, so there's no way he's going to have me passing him notes in front of 20 or 30 people and probably journalists to review the show, so I was not part of this show. But it's a big deal, and I'm sure they were getting lots of money for it, and they had the opening party at Elaine's. And this is so early on. We had just gone to mornings, and Howard's whole family is at Elaine's, and everybody's there, and I'm invited to this party, even though I have nothing to do with the syndicated show. What are they going to do? They got to bring Jackie. So we go to the Elaine's, and his sister comes up to me, and it was so funny because that morning, the black basketball player, not to be redundant, basketball player, Len Bias, had either died of coke or OD'd. So we wrote 20 hysterical, horribly rude, mean Len Bias cocaine nose jokes, and Howard killed on. And then he's doing a quick press conference for all the reporters that are Elaine's, and he's using the jokes. So he gets done with the little press conference, and he puts his arm around me and says, "Listen, man, as soon as we get some budget, I want to get you," because he knew he was saying the jokes I had given him that morning, even though it's my job. He had a twinge.
Yeah.
And his sister comes up to me. He wasn't standing, and I had never met her yet because I was on the show one day a week, and I wasn't part of the family yet. And she comes up and she says, "How?" And she's so nice. She's Ellen Stern, such a nice girl, and I probably make a mockery of her voice because it's funny. But she goes, "Hello. It's so nice to meet you. I work in the afternoon. I could never listen to the show, but now you guys are on in the morning, so I can listen to the radio show." And I said to my brother, "Howie, when did you get so funny?" And he said, "It's not me, it's Jackie, and you're Jackie. It's so nice to meet you." I'm like, "Is anybody fucking listening to this?"
That's awesome.
And I'm telling you, that is word for word the conversation. It was so funny. Because she wasn't trying to talk out of school, but if anybody knows how funny their brother is, it's their sister,
Man, with all that backstory, you left 2000, 2001.
2001.
You were making like $578,000 if I know your career, and
E-money and crazy stand-up.
That's
money.
obviously a great living. But I also know about what Howard was making back then, and it was time for negotiations. And you wanted $1 million a year, but according to your book, Joke Man Bowder Stern.
The Joke Man Bowder Stern.
You're
catching on, Red.
The Joke Man.
You're catching
the Joke
on.
Man Bowder Stern. You wanted $1 million a year, but you would have obviously accepted like $800,000.
Well, what really pissed me off is they wouldn't negotiate. It was our way or the highway.
Which is crazy because you just told the whole backstory. I mean, you deserved that,
and
you weren't asking for
and
crazy money
No.
because people don't remember like back then. I mean, that show was so huge that the radio stations were just printing money, as we call it in the radio world. Like, there was so much
and I tell
money
people,
coming in.
If somebody offers you a stand-up gig in Alaska, you don't say no.
Right.
You say $30,000.
Right.
And if they say, "We can't pay that," okay,
Right.
you can price yourself out of the boat.
You
I
negotiate.
did not price myself
Right.
out of a job. I asked I had made a decision in my head, and they had beat me up so bad on my last negotiation. Like, "Don't ever pull that crap again. You don't tell us what we're going to pay." I'm like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, this
like
is how it works in the real world.
The whole
You're
world.
trying to get your worth.
I'm reading about Babe Ruth not showing up for the ball game because his agent is telling him you deserve more money. The best ball player there ever was.
Yeah.
This is Babe Ruth. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not calling myself Babe Ruth, but I'm
Right.
saying you're allowed to negotiate.
Yeah.
That's the American way.
And it seems like people took it very personally because then you're like,
But people were so twisted in what they thought. There was one time in the early mid-90s, whatever it was, all I know is I was making $300,000 and I wanted $400,000. And I had it all figured out in my head, and it's one of the great stories that also I don't think made it into the book because I was friends with everybody. I went to all the different affiliates to perform. Gary had nothing he could do at the time, and Howard and Robin. So here I am. I'm going to do stand up, and they're going to
you can actually put on a show.
I'm going to go on the radio.
Yeah.
And so the owners I was just friends with all the people. And this one owner in Rochester was the owner, but he's also the general manager of the show, blah, blah, blah. And he helped me so much. And he said, listen, you got a negotiation coming up. He says, don't ever take anything personal. He said, when you walk out on stage, what do? I said, I tell jokes. He says, because that's your job. When you walk in and sit down and tell the general manager you want more money, he falls off his chair.
Yeah.
Because that's his job.
Yeah.
There's nothing personal. That's his job. So he told me that the smallest affiliate on the Stern Network made $250,000. Paid $250,000. No matter how small, that was the cutoff, $250,000. And for that, you didn't get anything. You paid that. And then you had to pay for the satellites, blah, blah, blah. They drove a hard bargain. So Rochester gets the show. So I know that if we add a new market, it's $250,000. I'm equipped with this knowledge.
That's the minimum. By
So
the way.
from the time of my last contract to the new contract, we had added 10 new markets. Now, some of them were like Dallas or whatever they were. Some of them were $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, but the minimum was $250,000. And I said to myself, and I had reasoning. So I went in and they offered me like a 7% raise or whatever it was, 7% salesman raise. You know, $300,000, they're going to give me $332,000 or something like that. And I went into, I wanted to see, who do I talk to? You go to see Mel. No, you don't see me. You talk to Don. No, you don't talk. They're shuffling me around. And every time you go in for a raise, you know, your stomach, they're motherfuckers, man. So I finally go in to see Tom. And he goes, you don't like this raise? I said, no. He says, from 300 to 332 or whatever, that's not a good raise? I said, no. He says, what do you want? And I said, 400. And I might as well tell him I would like to cut your wife open and eat her guts, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, where would you come up with a $100,000 raise? I said, what do you mean? It's very simple. Since my last negotiation, we've added 10 markets. I know at the very, very minimum, we make $250,000 per market. And I figure, if I'm not good for 1/25th of this show, I shouldn't even show up. So that's $100,000. And he looks at me and he goes, Jackie, 1/25th of $250,000 is not $10,000. He's talking to a mechanical engineer, right? I said, do the math. And he turned. I swear on my mother. He turned to his little calculator and he went and he punched in the numbers. And when he hit calculate, his shoulders fell 6 inches. Because he wasn't questioning that I deserved the money. He was questioning my math.
Yeah.
You got to talk to Mel. You know, so that was that. So
And we both had the same boss. Mel Karmazin was a scary guy. But I loved him to death.
I went in.
I miss him.
I went in, and Mel said, "You don't like this?" And he said, "Listen." And I have the piece of paper. He wrote down 5 years. He wrote, "You get this, and then next year you get this," and he wrote down the 5-year. Or this is the most recent negotiation. But and with the grand total, I said, I said no good. Oh no, that was way back then. And I said no good, and I said, thank you very much, but that's not what I like, and I appreciate you, and I left. And I walked out, and I spent the weekend without a job, and Nancy was thrilled. No more getting up early, and no more bullshit, blah, blah, blah. And Monday was a Columbus Day, and I don't know if people, but we used to work sometimes, and they worked, and we didn't work. I mean, I was off the show, and I came home, and we did a Jew joke. And it wasn't on the tape, but we did a Jew joke, and it was great. The phone rang a couple times. I answered it just as the little microcassette went off.
Yeah.
So I had the first minute of the conversation, but we never got to the meat of it.
Yeah.
Hello, Jack, it's Howard. Oh, hi, man. He said, listen, man, I need you. I said, well, listen, me and Tom are far apart, and I don't think it's going to happen. He says, well, just come in. He said, well, we're far apart. He said, how far apart are you? And I said, $62,500. Swear to you. He goes, well, just come in, Bart. I'll give you the $50,000. I said, it's 62.5. And he goes, all right, I'll give you the 60,000. I said, it's 62.5. He said, just come in tomorrow. So it was $50. What do you mean $40? I'll give you $30.
Right.
So to his credit, for the next 2 years, I got a check from his company every payday.
Made the difference.
To pay the difference.
There
And I
you
got
go.
my $400,000.
That's the Howard you like.
Because he needed me.
Yeah,
And I never felt like I was picking his pocket.
I don't want to confuse people. That was the first negotiation.
That
That
was-
wasn't the one that, where.
No, that was way ago. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you, at the time, I was off the show for a while, and I got a phone call from Dominic Barbara. He said, Jackie, you gotta get back on the show. You gotta get back on the show. What can I do? Can I talk to Mel? What can I do? I said, listen, we're far apart, Dominic. He said, well, what's the story? I said, listen, I'm making $300,000, and I want to make $400,000. And he almost drove off the fucking road. He said, what? Everybody thinks you're making $1 million, $1.5 million, and you're holding out for $3 million. And I said, no, I want a $100,000 raise. I was making $300,000, I wanted $400,000. He couldn't fucking believe it, because he knew.
The numbers were low, Jackie, I got to say. But that wasn't the one that led to you leaving, because then you wanted $1 million, then you would have accepted the $8 million. You guys were far behind.
Well, what I wanted
far
was
apart.
I wanted 800, 900, million, 1.1, 1.2. I wanted to average $1 million a year for the last 5 years, but I never got to express that.
Right.
My guy went into negotiating. He started at $1 million for the next year, but it was a negotiation, but there was never a negotiation. It went up, I think, twice. And at 650, that's take it or go home. And, and it was like just the fact that I wasn't worth, and we went 2 months without any back and forth.
Yeah.
And he said, look, you just got to stay home. And I said, all right, so I stayed.
Well, the sad part about that, then you were like, oh, man, I really missed this. And you were ready to suck it up and give.
After 2 months,
You're ready to suck it
I
up
called
and
him, said-
take whatever they were willing to give you at
I'll
that
say,
point.
I said, if the deal that was offered was still on the table,
Right.
I would take it. Because they had stamped that out too. It was like 650, 710, 780, and it was.
So now you're
it was
sucking it
a
up.
lot of fucking
now
money.
you're sucking it up, going, fuck, I'll just take what they're going to give me. And then they don't even.
And it wasn't a pittance. There was plenty of money,
they
and I
didn't-
knew that.
They didn't give you the common courtesy of even calling you back at that point.
Well, my lawyer called Tom, and I called Howard. And I said, I just want you to know that my lawyer's calling Tom, telling him I would take the deal if it's still on the table. And he said, well, thanks for calling. It's good to know that. That was the last day of it.
That was it.
Which is, fucking low.
Wow.
But that's, hey, this is the business.
No,
We're
it's
chosen.
interesting.
I do not hold their feet to the fire for that. I don't give a shit.
No, it's interesting to hear your point of view. That's all. And finally.
But do you know what I could have done to